I'm James Morrow here with Rowan Dean and Rita Panahi, and you know what? We're having a really fun time here, but I have a very serious question for President Joe Biden. It goes something like this. What the hell are you doing, man? Are you trying to get us all killed? Now, have a look at this. There's no audio because it was at a fundraiser. But have a listen to what Joe Biden, the world's smartest man, had to say at a Democratic senatorial campaign committee money grab the other day. He said, quote, "We have not faced," you've got to add all the stumbles and everything into there, just imagine. "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. We've got a guy I know fairly well," Biden continued, referencing Putin. "He's not joking when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming," unquote. Well, yeah, he's right about that. And for a second there, it's actually good to see Biden showing a little bit of, awareness of the situation rather than, looking for the ice cream bar or stumbling all over himself like he normally does. But this here is a bit that needs to be talked about. He also went on to say, quote, "I'm trying to figure out, what is Putin's off-ramp? Where does he find a way out? Where does he find himself in a position that he does not only lose face, but lose significant power within Russia?" Now, there's a lot to unpack in this, and none of it is good. Yeah, there's a lot of people in the press trying to say, oh, this is Joe Biden being super diplomatic, but in fact what he is doing is blundering his way, all of our way, to a nuclear apocalypse. And no one, weirdly, in the media seems to care much. I mean, remember when Trump was president and he was supposed to be the guy who was going to start World War III? What about Ronald Reagan? Some of my earliest memories are of the 1980s in my hometown of New York when anti-Reagan and anti-nuke protest marches, often covertly encouraged by the Soviets, were the climate strikes and Extinction Rebellion protests of their age. And yet now, the press is saying absolutely nothing about all of this, even as the U.S. buys more than $250 million worth of anti-radiation drugs. Oh, gosh, wonder why. Anyway, seriously, I don't like where this is going. And I have said from the start of the Ukraine conflict that as much as Putin is an evil bastard, I also don't have a lot of faith in the same American diplomatic and security apparatus that gave us forever wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, destabilized Libya for no good reason, unleashed the disaster that was the Arab Spring, and so much more. Which brings us to a more troubling point. I don't actually disagree with much of what Biden said, but so more than the question of why is he saying it? I mean, the fact is, by publicly stating that Vladimir Putin has been backed into a corner and has no way out that won't wind up with his power severely diminished, he has actually increased, not decreased, the chance of what could only be called a civilisational disaster. Because he also said this, quote, "I don't think there is any such thing as the ability to use a tactical nuclear weapon and not end up with Armageddon." What he did there was he committed the U.S. to a nuclear response, which would lead inexorably to a Russian nuclear response, and well, the whole thing's too horrible to contemplate. But let's be really clear. Again, yes, Putin is a bad guy, and what his forces, such as they are doing in Ukraine, is horrible and evil and all the rest. But fact is, Ukraine is not part of NATO. It is not under the U.S. nuclear umbrella. And to extend the same protection, treating a nuclear strike on its territory in the same way as a strike on the territorial integrity of the United States would be, is outright bonkers. Now, White House officials, of course, did their best to walk this back, but everybody must be deeply concerned about what's going on and coming out of the mouth of the man who is nominally the president of the United States and who has his finger on the nuclear button.